We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
We were 1 point clear after the game at Wolves as far as I was concerned. I definitely didn't count that 4-point gap as being real. Chelsea resurgent against Napoli at home and a very impressive demolition of a championship side at the weekend. But they're not very good, are they? And I don't think Chelsea at home is a particularly stern test of any serious title contenders anymore.
No, well, if you think United's midfield is weak, then Mikel, Moreles and Lampard has got to be one of the worst threes of any of the top side, hasn't it? I mean, Mikel, who's made no progress since that £12 million move from Manchester United a few years back. Lampard definitely on the wane, and Moreles has never been and never will be a top four quality player.
Events on the football fields this week, I mean, in terms of performances and results and outcomes and league titles and all that sort of thing, came into sharp relief as a player almost died playing football last week in a really public way. Absolutely horrific thing to witness, and understandably players and fans in absolute shock.
Fabrice Muamba, whose heart stopped beating for 79 minutes apparently, which is an awful long time to not have a heart beating, and miraculous really, if that's the right word, that he's still alive.
Yeah, and obviously it's wonderful news that he's improving. I mean, that's what we know as we record this. He's talking, recognising friends and family, and being visited by the great and the good in world football. I nearly made an Ashley Cole joke there, but it seems inopportune given the subject matter, and a mass outpouring of affection and sympathy for a player very well liked at all the clubs he's ever been at. Really, really kind of shocking and sad to see what happens. And I think there's been some pretty horrific stuff going on in, football's full of people being stupid and insensitive, so it's not particularly surprising, but a really kind of touching outpouring of support and sympathy for someone, I thought, from football community at large.
Yes. I mean, it's shocking because no one expects an extremely fit, healthy young man to drop for absolutely no reason in the middle of the football pitch, and his heart stopped beating. So it certainly brings into sort of sharp contrast our own mortality, doesn't it? I mean, we are neither fit nor young anymore, and we are still hearts beating, I believe, last time I checked anyway. So there's certainly, put some context to your own mortality. I had mixed feelings about some of the post kind of Muamba coverage. Certainly the mass media, I mean, Sky Sports News became unwatchable at some point because it was just rolling on Muamba, and it almost became like the day-to-day in its self-awareness, and that's Sky News, isn't it? So I take that for one thing, and so that was one thing. I have to say I began to find that very difficult to watch because it was titillating in its the tone of its coverage, and then of course get a feeling as a result of that, I think, and I don't think it's the kind of individual reactions, but of this kind of Diana-esque mass grief, and it almost felt like Sky wanted him to go because it had been an even bigger story then, and that was a real shame. But I think from the football community generally, you're right to say, very touching. There's players who've probably never heard of him and are prepared to make sort of statements and gestures on his behalf, and I guess that's the community rallying round.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people being cynical, and Red Issue's Twitter feed became a real... I mean, basically, I think they were pretty disgraceful. Sky Sports rolling news coverage, 24-hour rolling news coverage, is the worst thing in society, basically. basically. This issue aside, it's constantly feeds on scandal and disaster and makes us all feel less safe about the world we live in, and, you know, relies on terrible things happening to be relevant in the slightest. So, you know, rolling news is awful, and it kind of always is, and is unwatchable whenever anything serious happens. I think football is an arena. The reason that people care passionately about football teams, you can broadly say, is because human emotion is really difficult to deal with, and we externalise and attach it to, you know, ridiculously overblown emotions are attached to football every week when anyone scores a goal. Meaningful shifts in the title race affect the happiness of millions of people. If you're going to externalise your emotional life onto the game that's being played, there's definitely going to be an emotional response to a tragedy that happens within that field. And football gives an expression for those fears, and then on the flip side also gives an expression for the hope that things could somehow be better. Whatever your thoughts on religion one way or another, the fact that the message going out so prevalently is this thing of pray for Muamba, it's significant that that message exists. So if you're just a cynic and an atheist, then you can just dismiss that as codswallop, and that's fine, that's your inalienable right to do so. But on the other hand, it's part of football's role in society to be a focal point for people's inner world.
So on more positive news, I guess, 5 goals for United at Molineux. Wolves there for the taking. I think 5 was the minimum United should have scored really in that game. A proper thumping it was, and Wolves lucky, I think, that United took the foot off the gas to such an extent that the cricket score wasn't run up.
Yeah, Ferguson was a bit like, man, we were all right, you know, which I think is classic Fergie, really, very professional, as we used that word a lot last week. It was a very professional response from Sir Alex, wasn't it? Let's not get carried away. That wasn't necessarily reflective of the 5-0, but once Wolves had a player sent off, obviously, absolutely rightly so, for particularly that second challenge on a yellow card was a remarkably ill-conceived moment there from a professional footballer.
Dumb. It really massively, hugely dumb. No arguments at all could be had. I mean, 2 definite yellow cards, and studs showing for the second one, and it was so late you just got to wonder what was going through the guy's head at the time, and he put himself and his team in an awful position. I don't think it made any difference about the final result. United were clearly superior, but it just made the game easy for United to keep ripping Wolves apart.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few scary moments early on where at 0-0 Wolves had a couple of chances. Stephen Fletcher had the kind of gilt-edged chance almost, and didn't quite make the proper connection with his header. But then, yeah, when United got control of that game, it was absolutely all over. And it's interesting, you wonder whether they'll live to regret not smacking a couple more. I mean, 5-0, it's kind of greedy to want more goals, isn't it? But they seem to be there for the taking.
Yeah, for the very long periods of that second half, United went very easy on Wolves, I thought there's balls being passed around, and obviously absolutely zero pressure coming from Wolves for most of that second half. A brief period about 10 minutes ago when they rallied, United could have scored a lot more. I think, in a way, I was kind of disappointed, and I think that is what sparked Ferguson's reaction after the game, that United dropped the level of intensity. Yes, the game was won, but goal difference really could make a difference. I mean, there's 1 point in it now, and City have a 4-goal advantage, so another few from United could have made a real difference, and this was one of those games when you felt that United could have really racked up a ton of goals. Actually, one player who really did want a goal was Wayne Rooney, of course, who looked incredibly frustrated to not be able to get on the score sheet.
Yeah, man of the match, Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, which was a bizarre decision, wasn't it?
I actually had a tweet off somebody that questioned the selection of Rooney as man of the match, saying that he felt it was really deserved, and that Rooney had been quite instrumental, pulled a lot of strings, and, you know, made a big difference to the game, very involved in some of the goals. But just watching the game, to me, it looked like Antonio Valencia was kind of man of about 3 matches just from that one.
Yeah. I mean, Rooney had a fine game. You're right, he dropped deep, he pulled the strings, he was United's creative playmaker with Paul Scholes so deep, and he had a fine game, I thought. But Valencia was just outstanding, and I thought that was a difference. I mean, for a man who's been out for a month and clearly must be short of sharpness, match fitness, and all of that, he was simply brilliant. I mean, the poor guy at left back for Wolves didn't stand a chance, I didn't think. Every time Valencia got the ball, he looked dangerous. Aside from his fantastic goal on the break, he got 2 assists as well, and just all-round play was excellent. He provides loads of good protection and cover for Rafael at right back. He still looks inexperienced at times, doesn't he? So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Valencia plays the most of their games during the run-in, because Ferguson trusts him, and Young and Nani and whoever else will have to rotate on the left wing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really just love having an out-and-out winger up there. It's wonderful. He's just like this awesome throwback to the way things used to be in football, because, you know, the dominant kind of wide players in recent years have become increasingly central. Ronaldo,
right,
classic example.
Yeah, it's interesting that 2 Premier League games in a row now, Ferguson's played a kind of lopsided 4-4-2-ish with Welbeck in one of the wide positions. Started out on the left against Wolves, started out on the right against West Brom, but really both times drifted into the centre with Rooney dropping deep, and it was Ashley Young against West Brom, but Antonio Valencia against Wolves providing the real out ball and the width for United. I mean, if Wolves had been a better side, of course, you'd counter that by closing in and going a bit tighter, I guess, with your right back and your 2 central defenders, but of course they're simply not talented enough or tactically aware enough, don't really have a manager of any note doing anything at the moment, although I do think the criticism of Terry Connor is extremely unfair, given he's had 4 games in the hot seat at the moment.
Yeah, and really the criticism of Terry Connor is that it was extremely stupid to sack Mick McCarthy. That's what it comes down to. Valencia's goal, I just loved it. I just recently read an interview with Dennis Bergkamp in the first issue of The Blizzard, and it's a wonderful thing, that interview, because he talks in great depth about the thought processes involved in some of his most magical goals. It's a really interesting thing, and one of the things he came back to a few times was it's all about 3 touches. It's all about a first touch controlling the ball, a second touch generating the opportunity, and a third touch finishing it. And Bergkamp often did that in relatively tight spaces, but Valencia basically did that in half the length of the pitch. It was a wonderful ball to start the counter, a kind of long ball into space, trusting Valencia's pace. But he took 1 touch and controlled it, then a second touch, and it went further than you would think you would traditionally want to kick the ball away from you, but there was no one anywhere near him to stop him doing whatever he wanted. And a gorgeous finish on the third touch. Fantastic. And also brilliant to see Welbeck and Cheech both get on the score sheet a couple more goals to Chicharito's tally.
He could have had more, of course. So you think of the looping header that could have dropped over Hennessy in the Wolves goal, and a couple of other chances, and he looked bright. Second game in a row that Hernandez has looked bright, and he could be a real asset for United in the closing game. I mean, it's hard to pick a front 2, isn't it, and a formation that's the best one right at the moment. But fortunately, with Nani coming back as well, United have a pretty full complement of attacking players at the moment. Of course, one player who wasn't part of that complement was Dimitar Berbatov, again left out of the squad entirely.
Yeah, and you got me to rewrite a piece that I'd written for Rant Monthly at the beginning of the season, a month or so into the season, about Dimitar Berbatov, reflecting on how the season so far has gone, and yeah, he's 4th place by a mile, isn't he? And not even in Fergie's thinking, really. It doesn't appear. I guess we'll see him again at some point if injuries necessitate it, but if no one gets injured, I mean, he did have 3 strikers on the pitch, so, you know, he had a lot of options, didn't he? So perhaps he wanted to save those spaces on the bench for other people, but it does seem a little pointed.
The word is that Berbatov is not being punished in some way, but clearly he's a man who has no future at United. Manager and players agent have both confirmed that in the past week or so. So he's definitely going. The only question mark now is whether United activate that clause and try and secure a transfer fee, or whether they just let him go for free. And it's a real shame for a player who is so hugely talented, even if he hasn't always been productive for United, to not even make the bench seems to say quite a lot. And especially when Park's on the bench, a man who really isn't anywhere near, not even the same sport when it comes to talent, is it? But there you go. Yeah, you're right. Ferguson just decided, just as I suppose in the Champions League final when he decided Owen was a better option, he decided other people were a better option for this particular game. And of course we saw Paul Pogba again. United now trying to convince the player to stay on the basis of him being in the first team picture. So all of a sudden he's getting 20 or 30 minutes in almost every game at the moment.
Yeah, 3 in a row for Pogba. Just 3 in a row, and also every time he comes on as a substitute, City lose. So if he keeps that up, I don't know why they didn't try and arrange a reserve fixture to get Pogba just to come on as a substitute so City could lose.
Interesting theory.
You mentioned a Paul Scholes masterclass, Ed.
Well, 100 passes, 98 on target. Well, depending on which stats you read, some said 98 with 97 on target, but no, there you go. Whatever. He barely put a pass wrong in the entire game. Part of that, of course, was there was absolutely no pressure on him. It was like he was playing a game of beach football. He was just kind of strolling around, kicking it to his mates, and it was so easy. We've talked in the past about how if him and Michael Carrick are put under some kind of physical pressure, it can cause problems for United, but there was absolutely no chance of that happening against Wolves. No pressure whatsoever. He could pick every pass he wanted.
It is extraordinary. Okay, so when Scholes came back, the general gist was, oh my God, it's Paul Scholes. That's wonderful. Oh my God, it's Paul Scholes. This is absolutely terrible. What are we doing? Have we really...
Well, desperate, I think, was the word that was used. And I agreed. I think we agreed, didn't we?
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Absolutely. No, there was no room for revisionism now. I thought, well, this is terrible. He'd looked really out of sorts at the back end of last season, and it just seemed to be Glazenomics writ large, and also rather odd given some of the midfield resources that weren't being used. But I mean, he's transformed our season. There's that picture been going around of the Sky Sports graphic of our results in the league since Scholes came back. That was before the Wolves game, and it's just like 1-1-1-1-1 draw, 1-1-1-1-1. You know, we've not lost in the league with Scholes.
9 games, 8 wins and 1 draw in the time, this is all Premier League, of course, in the time that Scholes come back, The 3 losses in Europe, he didn't play in any of those games, so we'll forgive him those.
Well, one of the things that's absolutely remarkable about it is how terribly badly other teams have dealt with his presence in the side.
Right. I can't think of a game when he's been, but even the Norwich game, where he really wasn't put under much pressure either. Surely, look, this is a guy who's 36. He admitted himself that his legs had gone. He can't get about the pitch anymore. He basically stands in the centre circle. Put him under some physical pressure. Surely that is the answer, because if you let him have the ball, he's as good as anyone on the planet with the ball at his feet. But it's quite remarkable. No one has been able to deal with it.
I wonder whether it's that it's actually not that easy, because he's changed his game in a way that he hadn't managed to by the end of last season, or in the 6 months his legs have come back to some extent, because his passing's really quick as well. You know, he gets the ball out of his feet really quickly whenever there's any sniff of pressure coming towards him.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Well, you talked about the 3 touches. Perfect first touch every time from Paul Scholes.
Exactly. And they're kind of reticent to pressure him, because in pressuring you leave space behind yourself, and if there's anyone that's going to find that space behind the player pressuring him, it's Paul Scholes. And you say he sort of sits in the centre circle, which he does, but occasionally he then breaks into the 6-yard box with devastating effect and scores an amazing crucial goal,
as he did against Norwich.
Yeah, exactly. So it is just an absolute delight to have him back. And if it's only good for this season, if next season we see basically a repeat of last season with some good performances early on and then really falling away as the legs get more and more tired, and even if we get overhauled by City, it's still been absolutely phenomenal to have him back. It's been just a pure footballing, heartfelt joy to have Paul Scholes in the side being effective again. And that Bilbao standing ovation for Ryan Giggs, it gives you that perspective, you know. We've had one of the true all-time greats at Man United for his entire career, and it's just a joy to have a little coda which has been so impressive.
Yep. He certainly has been, and you'd expect he'll play most of the game towards the end of the season now. I mean, United don't have to play 2 games in a week at all, really. I mean, I'm trying to think when the next midweek game is. I've got 8 days, well, from the last fixture, 8 days until Fulham, so he'll certainly play against Fulham. I would think another week until the game after that. There's, I think we have 7 weeks and 6 games before we play Manchester City, so it's not exactly a packed schedule. No FA Cup, no Carling Cup, no European anything. So it's just the Premier League, and Scholes will play most of those games, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, injury aside, I don't see why he isn't going to play every single game.
Yeah. Well, talking of injuries, finally the injury crisis seems to be easing. We thought it was, and then suddenly had a whole rush of injuries. Smalling smashed his head open twice. Phil Jones got a rather nasty cold, and Nani hurt his ankle, and Valencia did too, but Nani should be back for Fulham. He's back in training, so he could well find a place on the bench. Phil Jones recovered from his man flu, and Nemanja Vidic says that he will definitely be back in time for July, so he'll he should be okay for pre-season.
Yep, fingers crossed.
Which is great news, isn't it? Great news. I mean, it's always hard to... player in his 30s has an injury that serious. It's going to be interesting whether he comes back as the same player again. There's always a fear that he might lose that half a yard of pace, which can be devastating for a central defender. But fingers crossed he'll come back as good as ever.
Talking of United central defenders, how did we not mention the fact that Johnny Evans scored against Wolves?
Had a fine game as well. I mean, there's no doubt he's in the side on merit. It's all performances at the moment from Evans. He looks very calm. He does the right things all the time. Haven't seen him bullied in a game for months and months and months, which of course was the criticism labelled at him last season. A fair one, I think. He makes a lot less mistakes than he has done in the past. He's just maturing into a fine central defender. I'm not sure I'd put him in the same bracket in terms of class as Ferdinand and Vidic. Not yet, anyway. He's going to have to step up another level. But the fact that he's cut out the errors, arguably United's best passing central defender now. Certainly his distribution's improved a hell of a load. And a goal, first in 150 games.
Wonderful to see. Absolutely wonderful. And the lovely Carrick-Evans combination, the 10-11 Boo Boys combining to score in 11-12. I mean, his renaissance is a thing to behold. 2 weeks in a row, Match of the Day 2, have done a little, my God, Johnny Evans is amazing now feature. And it's wonderful that it was kind of capped off with a goal, because you say he's not quite in the same class as Rio or Vidic yet, and fair enough, no one is. A bit like saying no midfielders in the class of Scholes. You know, Rio and Vidic are two of the best central defenders in history, quite literally, and as a partnership they're second to none in recent years, in my view. But Johnny Evans is making us not miss Nemanja Vidic that much, and I certainly didn't think that would be a sentence I would ever say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I mean, Evans has really stepped up.
Yeah.
Really has.
And it's extremely promising for his future development. I have to say, like, it's not necessarily guaranteed that it's going to continue at this pace, but if it does, then that notion that Jones and Smalling are our de facto replacement Rio and Vidic really does go out the window, because one of them is going to have to, neither of them should be at central defence ahead of Evans at the moment, and it's going to be a little while before they do, if he manages to keep any of this kind of form.
Well, yes, I mean, United will need all those players, though. I mean, Ferdinand's not getting any younger, and we don't know what will happen with Vidic. I mean, he just might not be the same player at all, so there are big question marks there. Ferguson, I mean, been doing the rounds this week that United are after Nathaniel Clyne. That is not a new one at all. Hate to blow my own trumpet, but I did call it, not even on United's website, on the ever high-quality goal.com. Some people don't quite agree with that statement.
No one that doesn't work for goal.com agrees with that statement.
Months ago, anyway, in actual fact. So, but a very good player, actually, Nathaniel Clyne. I think he would be a good addition if that one does follow up, and I suspect it's already been done, actually. I mean, he's out of contract, so it'll be a tribunal fee, or they'll agree a fee, and it'll be in the low millions, and so fits the profile of kind of player that United want to bring in: young, English, and cheap. He'll provide some competition at right back, and I would expect to see Jones and Smalling playing more often in the centre of defence next season. Perhaps, depending on how Raphael and the new entrant get along.
So, last week we didn't manage to get to many Twitter questions, so I promised listeners we'd do a bit of a Twitter question special this week and get through a bunch of them. So if you're ready, Ed, I'm going to start firing them at you.
Go for it. Have you got some good ones?
I think I've got some excellent ones, starting with an absolute belter of an ethical dilemma from Seven Cantonar's excellent podcast, at office_monkey, says, if a company came in tomorrow and offered £100 million for the naming rights to Old Trafford, would you take it?
No, it's not even that difficult. I mean, so talk about a poster for the Glazer era. No, why? What? Because United need the money? No. Because it would be the right thing to do? No, definitely not. The only argument would be that United are stuck for cash because the Glazer family piled on hundreds of millions of pounds of debt onto the club, and therefore this would help United out, which of course would be nonsense as well, because it would just allow the Glazers to suck another £100 million out of the club and dump it onto the debt that they created in the first place. So we'd now be playing at the Coca-Cola Dome and still be in hundreds of millions of pounds worth of debt, and just another piece of United's soul and history would have been flushed down the toilet by the carpet-bagging Glazer family. So no, was my very long answer to that not very difficult ethical question.
What if it was £100 million for transfers? If it was £100 million goes straight in the kitty City to be spent on players.
Yeah, but that's not realistic. And even if it was, I mean, even if you want to stretch this out and say it was definitely going to be for transfers, for what reason? I mean, so what, we could be a City Mark II. I mean, £400 million of players they had on the pitch. Not one of them really wants to play for City. They play for the cash. So I don't think so. I mean, United is a wealthy club, in part a very wealthy club because of the longevity of massive support, in part because of the success of the Premier League as a whole, in part because United were the first to commercialise, and in part because the Glazer family and their Mayfair-based commercial team have been so successful at squeezing money out of random telephone companies the world over. So the only reason United would even consider a deal like that, would need to have a deal like that, is because there's still 490 odd million pounds worth of debt hanging on the club, accruing at 8.25% interest, or coupon. The coupon on that is 8 and a bit % per year. So I don't think it's a difficult ethical question at all. I'd rather see United sink out of the top four than start resorting to selling part of the club off. I mean, what next? We'll sell the badge. Let's have some kind of hybrid Manchester United stroke Coca-Cola badge. Perhaps we could rename the club the Walker's Crisps Devil Rays. What's left after that?
Well, what's left now? You go and sit in the Stretford end and you look straight out, and what you see is a massive Nike swoosh. You see a shot of Alex Ferguson on the bench. He's sitting on an Audi-sponsored chair. The players are in training wearing DHL-sponsored gear. Got the name of global finance company on our badge, and it's more by luck than judgment that this one hasn't been massively contributory to plunging the whole world into global financial collapse like the last lot were. What's in a name?
125 years of history. Well, we're about 100 at Old Trafford. So it's important. It's part of the identity of the club, the very identity of the. Of course, it would never happen because of that very reason. Nobody would ever call it the Coca-Cola Dome. It would always be Old Trafford, just as the good fans up at Newcastle have rightly ripped down the ridiculous Sports Direct at St James's Park sign and defaced it. So I would hope the United fans would, not that I'm promoting criminality, I must get that disclaimer in, but I'd hope something similar would happen if the Glazer family ever did that. I mean, they promised they wouldn't do. Instead, what they did was actually sell Carrington to their ultimate parent company and squeeze some extra money out that way. So, it's not actually, it's almost decoupled from the club now. So you wonder what might happen with that down the line. But even the Glazer family aren't dumb enough to go down that route.
Talking of questions that might be quite easy to answer, would Del Piero be a good summer signing from Abdullah Hosseini?
No, but funny, we had a question last week from Doran, didn't we? Doran Solomon on Twitter, asking whether we'd need a fourth choice striker. And I was just thinking about this tonight when I was watching the game, and just trotting out some notes on the fact we do need a fourth choice striker. Berbatov's going, Machado will be sold, and if not sold, definitely loaned out, probably sold. Diouf has already gone, and it will be an absolute miracle, stroke disaster, depending on your point of view, if Michael Owen gets another contract. So United do need another striker. I can't imagine that it'll be Del Piero. I mean, he's 37 or something along those lines.
Perfectly fits in with our age profile then.
Yeah, right. It'd be difficult to come in as a striker into the Premier League at that age, I'd say. And he's kind of tended to drop even deeper, and as his career's gone on with Juve, one club man and all of that, and it definitely doesn't play every week with Juve, so that's why he's leaving. No. Is it definitely not going to happen? I would suspect he'll either go to a smaller ranked club outside of Italy, or he'll end up in the States or Dubai or China or one of those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What sort of striker do you think we might get? I mean, you said last week 3. Is there anyone that you can think of?
No, off the top of my head, I haven't got to that paragraph of the notes I was writing yet. No, I think they'll go for, within the profile though that I mentioned a bit earlier, he'll be young and probably not that expensive, under 10 million certainly, I think. I think that's probably what they're looking for. I mean, they've got 3 established strikers in Rooney, Welbeck and Hernandez that we know can perform at the top level, so I think the next one will be a young one. Will Keane in the reserves, not quite ready to step up, and there isn't really anyone else ready to do that job, so I think they'll bring in a player in the summer. I
wonder if Will Keane, I mean, obviously he's not ready to be challenging 3 really excellent centre forwards. I mean, we're kind of spoiled for choice already with those 3, Rooney and one of the other 2. I mean, like the fact that Chicharito's come back into goal scoring form again, and just when I was looking at that Berbatov article, looking back at this season so far, Hernandez's contributions have just been vital on several occasions, and as you said so many times, who would you want to nick you a goal if you need one 10 minutes before the end of a game.
Right.
And Welbeck has done such a good job of leading the line in a 4-5-1, interplay with Rooney, when we have kind of more advanced attacking midfielders, when Cleverley was playing well earlier in the season, linking up with Welbeck, really promising stuff. So perhaps Will King could be used as a fourth, because he's not going to play that many games. He still gets to play a lot of games in the reserves and continue his development. And, the only downside is he can't go on loan and play week in, week out at a higher level.
No, he'll go to the Championship. And I'd be really surprised. I mean, if you were talking about Keane as a fourth, it'd purely be about finances, that one. And
right.
He just wouldn't play enough. And I would think the temptation for Ferguson would be to leave him in the reserves and just dump another midfielder on the bench. So I really can't see it happening. I'd be really, really surprised. I'd be equally as surprised if Macheda's still at the club. I mean, I suppose there's an argument to say that if United can't find the kind of player they're after in the market, that he could come in as a fourth choice. But he's just had 3 utter disastrous seasons, hasn't he? I mean, back end of last season at Sampdoria, relegated, scored 1 goal in 19 games and barely played in the early part of this season, injury and being like 8th choice striker in a massive clutch of strikers United has. And then this disastrous move to QPR. I mean, he moves to QPR and about 2 seconds later Mark Hughes takes over and signs a couple of strikers and he's not even getting a look in. So there you go. And Cisse scored against Liverpool in their comeback to beat Liverpool at Loftus Road, and you can't see Macheda getting much of a look in next season if he was at the club, so he probably won't be.
No, and his first touch is missing, presumed left behind in Sampdoria somewhere.
Yeah, and there's this kind of feeling with Macheda that he thinks he's entitled. I think that kind of came out in some recent tweets where he was quite clearly tweeting about the fact that he wasn't even on the bench for QPR and then tried to pretend it was somebody else, nothing to do with football. And was fined by the FA, of course, for a homophobic tweet where he claimed that instead of saying "you stupid gay," he meant to say "you stupid guy." And interesting that A and U are absolutely nowhere near each other on the keyboard. The FA did not give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
We could see whether it was, TweetDeck for Android, and if he was using the swipe keypad, crazy things can happen. Talking of crazy things happening and football being played tonight, Man City bringing in Tevez. How do you think this will affect their title chances? Asks at Jack Hawkins 23. I mean, just what a shower Man City are. I mean, I'm not really into slagging off fans of other clubs because I think basically all groups of football fans are in one way or another culpable for great stupidity and all that kind of stuff. It's not like United fans are a paragon of moral excellence or anything, but the homecoming for a player who's been on strike for an entire season where they're challenging for the title for the first time in forever, it's just bizarre.
It really is. And what a hero, what an example to young players. Got off the bus, there was a cheer. He came onto the pitch to warm up before the game. There was sort of cheer stroke jeer. I was sort of like almost felt sorry for him for a second. I was like, pray for Tevez, the poor fella. But then of course he got a rousing reception when he came on and unfortunately played a crucial part in the winning goal for City. And, a shower is a good term, and he's the leading member of that particular group, isn't he? And just incredible, really. I mean, can you imagine Ferguson forgiving a player? I mean, of course you could draw parallels with Rooney, and Rooney saying that he wouldn't sign a new contract and all of that, but that was a negotiation tactic and took about 24 hours to resolve. This has been 6 months of Tevez playing golf in Argentina on strike, pretending he has moral right on his side, and it's only now at this point that City see their title challenge under even greater pressure from United that they've decided all to patch things up and make up and bring him back into the team. Man, can't imagine that he'll still be at the club after the... I mean, he's like, how many times has he asked for a transfer now? He's asked for a transfer 3 times and gone on strike and refused to get off the bench and fallen out of the manager, and they still bring him back.
I mean, do you think that he will have a beneficial impact on their run-in? I'm inclined to think that he's more likely to benefit them than not.
Yeah, the players are all making the right noises, aren't they? Every interview I hear, the player in question is asked about this, and they all say, "Oh, it's great to have him back," blah blah. So they're all making the right noises. There doesn't appear to be any sort of ruckus in the camp. It might come out. We'll see. Of course, the first time Tevez is yanked off early, if he doesn't do what Mancini wants tactically or something like that, then we could have some fireworks. But yeah, on balance, I think he'll probably be a benefit to City because he might score a crucial goal or set up a crucial goal as he did against Chelsea, right? I mean, it's his turn and pass to Nasri that created the goal. So he is a good player when he wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think he's likely to want to be because, if there's...
Well, he wants that transfer, doesn't he? He's got to show that he's got some desire in order to get that transfer, and presumably he'll want a big fat cheque with lots of zeros on at the end.
Yeah, I mean, and also there's the rumours about his win bonus, which are the potential for him doubling his wages at Manchester City if they win the league.
He's been fined more over 6 months through refusing to play than almost any City fan or United fan or any other fan will earn in a lifetime. Yeah, it's just incredible, really, and he's so rich he can afford to throw it away, but he could become yet richer still.
At Dew632, that's Dew, D-E-W, it's not a weird religious thing, who is extremely good at draw something, incidentally, says numbers really aren't important, but it would be cool to see Valencia in the number 7 shirt next season, would it not? Absolutely, I am so on board with Valencia number 7. It just makes sense in my head. He's definitely worthy of that hallowed number at United, a lot more so than its current occupant.
Yeah, its current occupant is obsessed with horses and his stables and his trainer and his cold. And poor old Mike. Pray for Michael Owen. He can't even have a Lemsip when he's got a cold. Valencia definitely deserves it. He's earned it. He's a first choice right winger, whatever. He gives everything. There's no pretensions about him. He would be fitting for the shirt. Yeah, start a campaign.
A brilliant article on Manchester United's official website by Steve Bartram on Antonio Valencia. Check it out if you haven't already. Dew632 also asks, are they definitely thinking of moving the away fans to tier 3 in the Sir Alex Ferguson stand? He's worried about having things thrown onto his head. An understandable worry.
They're doing a trial. There'll be about half-ish of the third tier of the North Stand full of Aston Villa fans in a couple of weeks' time. And that's a trial with a view to, if it works out, doing that for all the fans next season. I presume it. I mean, I don't think this is a fan-driven, it will be a better atmosphere or anything like that. I presume it's a financial thing, so be able to use some prime real estate for home supporters, presumably be able to charge a premium for what is very good seats. Most away fans don't get such good seats. They have a very good spot there on the sort of upper part of south-east corner.
Question from @Adam Hutenen. Why doesn't Scholes take the corners, given his mythical 40-yard dead balls, hits at trees and whittling teammates? That's a very, very, very good question.
Well, he hangs around in the centre circle now, so if you look at any corner that United take, he's hanging back because he hasn't got the legs anymore to run over to the corner and hit it. Of course, Wayne Rooney took a corner from which Michael Carrick knocked one back and Johnny Evans scored at the weekend, so maybe Rooney should be taking the corners instead of hanging around the box. Certainly shouldn't be Nani. He's had 5 seasons now, nearly 5 seasons, in order to learn how to take corners. No. He can't. Let's admit that. He can't take a corner. Many fine qualities, Nani. Corner taking is not one of them. Rooney took a fine corner.
He did indeed. And our final Twitter question this week, thank you very much to everyone who asked, and sorry if we haven't got to yours. What kind of music do you gentlemen lean towards? Thinking back to your old intro tune, you seem to play a lot of hip-hop. That's a question from @Kofei87. One thing that many people don't know about Ed is that he's like a secret massive country and western fan.
And this is not true. No, I like a bit of old school rock and soul. The original kind from the 1960s.
Yeah, I like both of those types of music. I have extremely broad and eclectic music taste. I definitely like to listen to a bit of hip-hop. If I was to be shipped off to a desert island and I could only ever listen to one genre of music again, I think I would have to take Motown and chess type 60s era R&B and soul.
There you go. And Paul is, of course, a massive S-Club fan, so...
Reach for the stars!
Yeah, juniors, I should add.
Oh, man! Oh, the dagger. The kick a man when he's down. I sang a lot on last week's podcast. It's massively divided the Rantcast community. Basically, the two camps are reflected by me, of the view that definitely keep singing, and you, of the view that I definitely should never sing again on the podcast. And we've so far had about equal numbers of feedback on either side.
Interesting. Given that I do the editing on this show, I think that ought to rule. And it will. So, Fulham at the weekend. Well, not even at the weekend, Monday night. We've got quite a gap between games here for United to rest and recuperate and get all the players back fit and ready. And Fulham at Old Trafford is normally a guaranteed 3 points, isn't it? I wouldn't expect it to be any different this time.
Fulham off the back of a shellacking at the hands of Swansea last week.
Swansea, who played some absolutely fantastic football in that game as well. I mean, I think wasn't one of the goals 28 passes before the goal? They really, I mean, not even a hint of patronising here. They play some really good football and effective too.
Yeah, and the brilliant thing about all the analysis of Swansea is that every time I see any of it, I keep thinking back to what you were saying in the build-up to the Champions League final last season, which is the thing about tiki-taka is that it's an incredibly effective defensive strategy because you have the ball all the time, and whenever your opponents have the ball, they're exhausted from running after you. And Swansea are just like really, really good proof of that they're playing this kind of gorgeous football, but there's not an ounce of naivety about it. It's all kind of nous. And actually, Brendan Rodgers is doing pretty much a better job than any other manager other than Sir Alex in the league.
He's doing a really awesome job. Interesting question asked on Goals on Sunday. I don't know if I don't always watch it, but I caught it at the weekend. The argument there was that perhaps this will be a lesson to clubs newly promoted that you can play very good, attractive football and survive, because there'd almost been a theory and proven out by some teams that if you came up and tried to play nice football, you were probably going to end up going down. And if you came up and launched it route one like Stoke, you'd probably be safe. And Swansea have certainly turned that around and proven they can be extremely successful. I mean, they're in the side of the top 10. No fear of getting relegated. A few more points, they'll be on the edge of the European places. They're not going to make it. But an incredible first season. Played really good football. Keep the ball. Got some fine players. The challenge now will be to keep all those good players and not have bigger clubs come along and take them away for large wages and big transfer fees.
But it's a really interesting situation because, they're not superstars by any means. I mean, yeah, they've got some excellent players, but a lot of them, I mean, Leon Britton played for Swansea when they were in the absolute depths, didn't he? And
the one player they won't be able to keep is Sigurdsson, who's a Hoffenheim player and will probably go for a sizable fee somewhere else.
You've got to think that middle-level, talented, passing footballers are going to be wanting to flock to Swansea because, I mean, if they're not primarily motivated by financial success or whatever, if they're not, going to get a move to one of the big clubs, going to a place where all the training's with the ball and there's a really good atmosphere and attacking football is prized and there's like an actual atmosphere in the grounds and in the ground and all that sort of thing, it's got to be and an up-and-coming young manager. I mean, he's the one they've really got to keep, I think, but he, as like when he was being linked with the Chelsea job, tongue-in-cheek, said, I want to build a career, not destroy it. So he's obviously going to stay at Swansea until the really right job comes along.
Yes, he denied that quote was about Chelsea at all, and it was out of context, and it was just purely in the context of Swansea. I wonder whether he had his tongue in cheek when denying it as well. Yeah, fine young manager. He looks like he's building a real career for himself there, and you hope that they seem to be building their club the right way, that if they have a difficult period at some point next season, which they inevitably will have at some point, that the powers that be in the Swansea boardroom don't suddenly panic and fire him for no reason. We've seen worse though, haven't we? So this is what chairmen do. They especially of the clubs that have come up or are down the lower reaches, they fire very quickly. But anyway, of course, a very long discussion about Swansea there, and because United aren't actually playing Swansea next week, we're playing Fulham. So what are your thoughts on this game? I couldn't possibly see any kind of scenario where United don't pick up the full 3 points.
You really don't think you're trying hard enough? This is United we're talking about. It's not 99 United or anything. We have plenty of capability not to pick up the 3 points. Fulham will be hurting. They've had periods of playing really well this season. They've got some excellent strikers. Well, they've got Clint Dempsey and a bunch of other players. Fulham have got a chance.
Pogrebniak is scoring goals for fun.
Absolutely.
Dembele has gone from being an exciting looking striker to an outstanding creative midfielder. There were plenty of players that could hurt United. You just can't see how they're going to shut United out though, which will be the big question, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to hope that our strikers don't have an off day. I'm not predicting a United loss. I think be a particularly defeatist United fan to predict anything other than a home win in this one, but I don't think it's going to be an easy game. But I've said that the last 2 weeks in a row and they've been very easy games, so what do I know?
I don't think United are going to run up 10 here, but I do think it'll be a comfortable victory. Of course, United could be back in second place by then, and City beat Chelsea 2-1 on Wednesday night, which wasn't a surprise, but I did think Chelsea would put in a bit more of a shift, given that they're chasing fourth.
They're rubbish, though.
Performance, I think. They are rubbish. And then City go to Stoke, which is definitely not an easy game, although Stoke haven't been in great form recently. And Tony, this is an interesting one. Did you see this? Tony Pullis has gotten away with driving nearly 100 miles an hour, and this was his 15th, not third, 15th point on his driver's licence. So in normal circumstances, anyone would be banned, and for quite a long time, for doing that kind of speed. His lawyer very successfully argued that they couldn't possibly take away his car, because if they took away his car, it might affect his ability to do his job. If he couldn't do his job properly, Stoke might get relegated. If Stoke were relegated, it would cost 60 million to the local community, and he couldn't possibly have a chauffeur, because the chauffeur might overhear any transfer dealings and then leak them to the press. And the magistrate bought this. If I ever get in trouble, I'm going to find out who that lawyer is, because I want him, because he's brilliant.
He is Avon Barksdale's lawyer off The Wire. That's the only possible explanation for this.
I mean, you could do anything with that lawyer. You'd never go to prison. Never. Maybe Carlos Tevez should hire him.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Just second to Alex Ferguson's, I had a bit of diarrhea. That's why I was doing 1.5 tons down a hard shoulder.
I remember Beckham getting in trouble for his speeding, and I think he basically got out of it by flashing smile at the police officer who was unable to resist his handsomeness.
Is that the same car he was ripping Rebecca Lose the new one over?
Oh, that's not a nice expression. Yeah, so speeding manager aside and bullet-like long throws, I'm not sure Stoke will get anything from City, really. I think this is, you were saying, we could pull away. The thing about that Chelsea game, I was just really hoping it wouldn't be a game that swung momentum. A comfortable win for City would have been fine by me, because I really did not have many expectations for Chelsea. But going behind and then digging out a win with Tevez coming on, that's the narrative we didn't want to see. That's the resurgent dressing room, maybe we're champions after all narrative.
Yeah, and I mean, I do see your point there, yes, and in a way that scoring late and getting the winner late will have given them a huge boost, but they are rubbish away from home at the moment, City. So they didn't really, they did play well against Chelsea, they were clearly the better side and deserved the win for whatever that means, but they didn't look like opening Chelsea up at every moment, and for all the attacking players on the pitch there was something lacking in the final third, and that's what's been costing them away from home. So going to Stoke, and they're going to have to grind out a win, not pass out a win, and we'll see whether they can do that. Big test for City, big test. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Stoke got a draw out of that one.
No, absolutely. Well, I'd love that. It'd be wonderful if we got a United win and a City draw again. Then it'd be 3 points at the top and that little bit of comfort. We'll see. It's a fascinating season. We'll be saying this every week probably, unless something shifts and there's a couple of results on the bounce which go our way or their way. But this one is definitely not all over, and we definitely hope that you'll stay with us for the rest of the season. I courted controversy on the United Rant website earlier this week by putting up the option to donate some money to the Rantcast. We obviously do this for the love, not the money, but it takes a lot of time on Ed's part, and a fairly significant financial outlay has been invested in microphones, and we're starting to get some listeners now. Hello everybody. So that's got some associated bandwidth cost. We're trying to avoid tacky gambling adverts essentially, so we're hoping that the Rantcast listening community will be able to pitch in. If you could go to unitedrant.co.uk/donate and chuck a couple of shekels our way, that would be much appreciated. Although, having said that, you listening is way enough for either one of us, and this is really just a way to contribute if you feel like you want to.
I see that Mr. C. Tevez of Manchester has contributed a couple of pounds. Wonderful, thank you, Carlos.
Thanks Carlitos, much appreciated. Couldn't have stretched to an amount that would have meant that we didn't have to ask the rest of you for donations.
Well, he's a bit hard up at the moment. He's just taken a £10 million fine.
So unitedrant.co.uk/donate. If you're feeling charitable but not financially, a review on iTunes also helps us out greatly, and we love getting feedback on Twitter at UTDRantcast for me and at United Rant for Ed.
Very good. So before we go, prediction. It's our usual prediction slot. We never get these right. Well, occasionally. Perhaps you could count the number of times we've got this right on the palm of a hand, or the fingers even of a hand.
If everyone listening gave us £1 for every time we'd got a prediction right, then we would never have to ask for money again on the Rantcast.
If we took those £3 and then put them on the Euro Millions and then won 3 weeks in a row, then we'd never have to ask for money again. So go on, predictions. What do you reckon? United v Fulham. Fulham?
I think that it is going to be 4-1 to Manchester United.
Very good. I thought you said it was going to be a difficult game.
No, I said it could be. I said I think it displays a staggering lack of imagination to suggest that you can't see how it could be anything other than a United win. We have such a massive capacity to muck things up.
Yes. Well, I can't see how it can be anything other than a United win. So on that hubris, I'm going to confidently predict a 3-0 victory for United. Comfortable. I think we'll storm to a 3-0 lead and then ease it off in the last
And of course, being as we are playing against Fulham and may have Nani back in the side and certainly at least Valencia, what a perfect time to bust out the king of pop.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.